My name is Corey Bishop, and this is Bones to Life. Today I sit down with Leyna, whose story echoes the words of Psalm 34, verse 18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Her journey begins in childhood chaos, where she remembers hiding in closets during explosive arguments and feeling a loneliness that she just couldn't name. Yet even in those years of confusion, self-harm, and searching for love in fragile places, God was quietly preserving her life. He was guiding her through unexpected relationships, small moments of grace, and the long road toward healing. This episode invites you to listen slowly to a testimony shaped by pain, resilience, and a God who never stopped reaching for her. Let's open our minds and open our hearts as Leyna tells her story. Heavenly Father, we welcome your peace into this space. Still our hearts, quiet our thoughts, and help us be fully present. Thank you for bringing Leyna here and for the story you've written in her life. Guide her words, steady her spirit, and let your grace flow through her testimony. Prepare us to listen with openness, compassion, and hope. May everything shared tonight draw us closer to you. Amen. All right, Leyna, the floor is yours to share your testimony.
Okay, so I guess my testimony it begins when I was just a baby. So my parents were living the partying lifestyle. They were going out and things were just like chaotic. And I believe actually I may have been put in some dangerous situations at times. And it was hard. I mean, obviously I was a baby and I didn't know, but later on people told me some stories and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is almost a miracle right here now that like I'm alive and that things were okay. And then when I was like 3 or 4 years old, my parents got divorced. They'd been fighting constantly. They really only got married because their mothers forced them to because they were having a baby. So I'm not sure they really ever should have been married, but that's okay. So, yeah, they got divorced when I was 4 years old. And honestly, that was one of my first memories. I can vividly remember being in that courthouse. And I remember leaving with my mom. And I was so sad. I didn't understand why wasn't my dad coming with us. Like, I really didn't understand that. And that kind of, I think, began the brokenness in my life right there at 4 years old. And soon after, my mom ended up having another baby. And then she did get remarried. So a stepfather entered my life. And honestly, he was fantastic. Like, I thank the Lord for him. Like, he definitely was a blessing in my life to some degree. But him and my mom, there was still constant fighting in my childhood. Like, I remember there'd be like blowout fights. And like, he never hit her, but he would hit things in the house, so I would hear things breaking, and it really made me upset. I would hide in my closet and cry. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to deal with it, and it was a lot for me. And thankfully, like through this time, my maternal grandmother, she was very spiritual and religious, and she made sure that I made it to church. On weekends, I was with my dad, and she lived close by, thankfully, so she'd pick me up, and she made sure just about every Sunday I was at church. So I was in the church, and I was getting a foundation, so it was there to some degree. And then when I turned 13 years old, my dad moved, so it was out of my grandmother's way. She was still willing to come and get me, but they allowed me to make a decision. And as a 13-year-old, I didn't think it was necessary, and I chose not to go. And that was definitely not a positive decision in my life, but it's how it went. And honestly, like from age 11, actually, almost to like 26 years old, I felt this deep depression. Like I felt like I was in a deep, dark pit. I was completely lost. I had no idea who I was or what was going on. And I really felt a deep sense of being completely loved. And I know that I wasn't, but I just felt so completely unloved. So then as a almost teenage girl, I just went boy crazy and was trying to date boys and fill this void with all these people. And 11, 12 years old, that's never going to work. That's kind of ludicrous to think, but I didn't know what else to do. I was just so lost and in such a dark place. It was the only thing I thought of that would work, and it never worked. I was either totally rejected, or obviously relationships at that age aren't going to really go anywhere. So that was a lot, and that was hard. And then in high school, I did attend a youth group with my boyfriend, actually, but it was none of it, it was just surface level, I guess. None of it really sunk in. And then afterward, we were doing things we shouldn't be doing. There would be times I would skip youth group and we'd go drinking. I don't know, it just wasn't really clicking at all for me. And also, through this time, through middle school and high school, I had almost constant suicidal thoughts and suicidal actions. I never did anything too damaging, but I would cut my wrists. I would ingest perfumes. There would be times where I would mildly overdose on Aleve or ibuprofen or something. And then I would go to school the next day and I would be out of sorts. And sometimes there'd be people who would ask me, and I was pretty honest with people. And I remember one time there was a kid in school. He was very concerned. He heard how I was acting and things, and he reported me to the school. And they called me and the guidance counselor, and they had a meeting, and it was just things never came together. Even though people knew I was crying out for help and I was lost, I never got the help. At one point, there was even a letter that was sent home to my mom because I was going to the guidance counselor so much, and they thought that I needed professional help, which I probably did. And it was my mom didn't take it seriously. I still can't understand. And at this point, I haven't really broached the subject with her, but it's just, I don't understand why nobody understood that I really was crying out for help and I really desperately needed help. And it was nobody heard, nobody really understood or took it seriously. So this just continued to go on for all of these years. And then in my early 20s, then I started partying, going to the bars. My behaviors got even more risky. I was in some terrible places and situations I never should have been in. And it was really a miracle many, many times that I would wake up in my bed and I'd go out and I would look to check to see, okay, is my car in one piece? I'd call up my friends who were with me. Are you home? Did you make it home safe? What went on? And all this stuff. It was a lot. It was a real crazy stuff. So I know God was looking out for me even when I was blatantly walking as far away from him as I could. And a lot of time during this time also, there would be occasional times when I would pray, but honestly, the main thing that I would pray is I would pray for God to take my life. I didn't want to live. I was just so broken that I thought the only way to be whole and to be okay was to no longer exist. I didn't understand anything other than that for so many years. So then actually in the fall of 2008, I kind of was at my lowest low, but I met my now husband and I was super honest with him. I told him hey, I'm a complete mess. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm at. I don't even know, but he was so kind and so loving and he wanted to be with me, even though I was just, I don't know. I felt like I was totally more unlovable then almost than ever because I was just all over the place. But no, he wanted to be with me. And so then we were together and things moved very fast. Actually, the next fall, we ended up having our daughter. So that wasn't really ideal, but it was how it worked. And I mean, she was a blessing, because at the time I was also told that I would never have children, and that was upsetting, because I always thought that I would definitely have children. So she was a blessing. And I remember when I had her, just like the love, like if you've ever had a baby, like especially your first baby, and you hold them, it's just this love that you feel that just comes over you is just so beautiful and overwhelming. So that was definitely like a very, very positive moment, like at that time. So my behaviors kind of at this point had changed a little, but not completely. I was still making some bad choices and kind of not sure which direction I was going. And I still did feel a little bit of depression. I mean, with having a baby, sometimes you have like the postpartum issues, and I definitely was not doing fantastic, but it was better than before. And after having her, it did motivate me. I started going to college, so I felt like I needed to do something to better myself and maybe just to have a career and do something different. And I also did start attending church eventually, like when she was a toddler, periodically. I didn't go every week, but I did try to go periodically. And I did have a strong feeling that I wanted her to know God, and I wanted her to grow up in a church. So that was probably part of the seeds that were planted in me, that happened. And then finally in 2015, both me and my daughter Peyton Rogue, we got baptized together, which that was a really, really beautiful moment. And I had vowed to God before that baptism that I was giving up lying. Like, lying was a big problem for many, many years. And I'm like, nope, I'm done with that. So that was a big change and a big step forward. And then the following year, 2016, I graduated from college. I had a bachelor's in child and family studies and a minor in psychology. So I had that under my belt. I didn't really have an idea of where I was going job-wise. I was actually cleaning at the time for Top Notch. So when they asked me at graduation, what are you doing after graduation? I'm like, oh, I'm going to clean toilets. This is interesting. Not sure if this is the right path, but that's where I was initially. And then not long after I graduated, I actually got a call from the Hawley Public Library, and I was offered a job there, which was my dream place to work. It was somewhere that was comfortable, and it was part of my childhood for a long time. So that was super, super exciting. And then not long after being there, I think I was there barely a year, they actually offered me the children's librarian position, which was literally my dream job. So that started falling into place, and that was awesome. And then also somewhere in the year 2016, I attended my first like a home Bible study through the church with some ladies. And the Bible study was called War Room. So basically the premise of it was to pray for your husband, which I wasn't married at the time, but that's who I was praying for. We had gone through a lot of things. Things were up and down for many years, but I'd prayed to God because I wasn't really sure we belonged together. But God had told me, nope, this is where you belong. And even though he was still kind of partying and doing all that, and it was really hard to raise a child together, and he also was a chef, so he wasn't home very much, God told me we were supposed to be together. So I trusted God. Okay, we're going to be together. So during this War Room Bible study, I was praying for him. I was praying that like just things that were going to change. We were going to become more equally yoked, and our relationship was going to be good. And the very last day of that Bible study, I was home and I was washing dishes, and he came home, which was not normal. It's very odd. And he has this little blue box in his hand. And I'm like, what? And he didn't get down on one knee because he said he was afraid he wasn't going to get up, which he's not that old and whatever. But that's what he said. And he asked me to marry him. And this actually was the third time he asked me to marry him. The other two times I had said no, because it just didn't feel right. Like the timing was off. Like it just wasn't right. But this time it was right. And the ring was beautiful. It was a blue sapphire, which happens to be our daughter's birthstone. And it, like I said, it was the last day of his Bible study, which I had been praying for him for, I don't know, it was 4 or 6 weeks. It was amazing. It was one of those really amazing moments. So then I went to Bible study that night and I was telling everybody, and it was like a testimony to this Bible study. Like, hey, you've been praying for your husband, and here, like, now you're engaged. So this is definitely a step forward, and things were going in a right direction, and it was awesome. So we were married the next year in 2017, and we got married by Pastor Ken, and we actually got married up on Irving Cliff in Honesdale.
Oh, wow. That's
So
neat.
yeah, my aisle was under the star up there. It was really a cool moment, and my 2 grandmothers were my bridesmaids. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. Things were going good for a while after that. Things were just, I was very like comfortable with things, and things were just going real good, and it was awesome. And then 2020 hit. And things got weird. Then I definitely, like, I felt like my joy was taken from me, and I could feel myself going back into that pit of depression because I couldn't go to work anymore. It was kind of, like, I still socialized a little bit, but it wasn't anywhere like it was before. The church had shut down at least for a while, so I had lost the fellowship and that, and I'm an extroverted person, so I need people around me. So being stuck in my house was not good. So that was really hard. But during this time, I did also, like, because I was forced to be home, I did find a couple ministries online that I watched, and I started reading a little bit more. So I did start to learn some things that I hadn't been learning at church, and just light was shined on a couple things that were just like revelations to me. So after I got through like the negative aspect of it, I could see that there was good in this, that God maybe was shaking things, and some things had to come off. Also, things at the church just got also where just like things didn't feel right anymore. There was just something where I knew also I had to move, something like that. So then in February of 2021, I had seen a sign outside of the church, Thrive Church in Honesdale, and it was night church, and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird, but I had a friend that was in a Bible study group that was going there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to church right now. I need church. I'm going to give it a try. And I went in there, and it was like a breath of fresh air. And Pastor Tyler, that night, he usually like has something prepared and notes and things like that. And that night he went completely off the cusp. He did not preach what he intended to preach, and every single thing that he preached just was exactly what I was going through or exactly what I needed to hear. I needed to be there. It was very, very obvious. I belonged there in that church that night, and I've never left that church since. Like, that's definitely my home. And initially, my husband was not open to going that church. He hadn't been going to church with us very frequently at all. That wasn't really, I guess, like his thing. He had grown up Lutheran, and it was just hard for him to transfer out of that. And I don't know, maybe he just didn't even think church was important. So that April, there was evangelists coming to that church that he had been watching. And I said, oh, for my birthday in April, will you please just come to this church? And he did. And it was beautiful. Actually, right before the service, I was sitting in the pew, and a feather fell and landed in my hand. And it was just like, okay, all right, God, this is definitely you. This is so awesome. And the same thing with him. The message was exactly what he needed to hear, and so personal. And he's never left the church since either. And it wasn't very long after that, there were a couple people in the worship team that they noticed the way he was watching them play guitar. And my husband had just kind of begun playing guitar himself, and they invited him to play in the worship team, and he was kind of blown away. He's like, I really don't know what I'm doing. Like, he had just been playing with a couple video games, and he kind of just been learning, but they invited him there and he went and he is on that worship team every single Sunday playing. And actually the worship leader now, she sent me a message just telling me how much joy he brings, which for me is kind of like, my husband, he brings joy. Like, I love him and all that, but that's interesting.
That's so cool. I mean, that speaks volumes when someone sends you a message or calls you or comes to speak to you personally about your significant other. I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't do that enough nowadays. Like, they're afraid to go to someone and give them compliments or even go directly to them and give them compliments. I think we need more of that today. I think we do.
And like, there had been times in the past, I remember standing in the church, and most of the time I was there either by myself or with my daughter. And I remember seeing husband and wives together. And I remember just having a deep longing for that. I was just like, I don't want to be here, standing here by myself or just with my daughter. I want to be here with my husband. And then when he started being like playing guitar and being musical inclined, I remember just feeling something in my like spirit, like he's going to be on a worship team. And it took a while, and then it all fell into place. And it was just, they were things I'd prayed for and I just believed for, and I felt my spirit. And it's kind of a miracle now looking back. Like, it took a while, but there it all is. It's all like falling into place. And it's just so beautiful. Like, me, my daughter, and my husband are all serving in this church together. And it's just a miracle.
Yeah, it adds a little bit extra happiness into it, doesn't it?
It does. It does for sure. Yeah. So then in 2022, I had a miscarriage, which at the time, again, my body was not functioning properly, and we weren't trying to have a baby, but we didn't think we could have a baby. And then we did. And we got excited, and then it didn't end well. But it was really interesting. Like, normally my reaction to this would have been like devastating. I probably would have started to feel depressed again, and I didn't. I didn't feel that. I was upset and semi-devastated, but it was just a different level of upsetness because I knew God was in it. And I prayed and I cried out to him. And we realized now, like, wait a second, we're not content. Like, we had kind of talked about it for a couple years. Should we have another kid? And we were kind of like, oh, we're content. And now we knew, no, we are not content. We would like to have another child. And we also specifically knew that we wanted to have a son. So we stood on that, and we kept praying to God, and we kept believing it. And I actually had such strong faith, knowing that someday God was going to give us a son. I would talk like that. I would say things about my son, to the point at Bible study, the one lady one time, and she's like, well, I never met your son. And I said to her, well, I never met my son. I haven't met my son yet either. God hasn't sent him to me. But I was so confident. Like, no, God gives us the desires of our heart, and our desire is to have a son. And we lost a baby, and that's not okay. So God is gonna give us a son. And then when we found out we were pregnant, I told family members, no, this is a boy. And they're like, well, it may not be. And I'm like, no, this is a boy, because we didn't just pray for a baby. We prayed for a son. And that's what God is giving us. He's not going to give us anything else, just a son. So it was like, when we found out it was a boy, we were confident that it was, but then we could finally tell everyone, be like, well, here, it's confidently a son. There's no doubt. This is a baby boy.
It had to feel so good too, being able to present that to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a mic drop moment, right? Yeah. Like, yes, I told you.
Yeah, there was no doubt.
That's so nice.
Yep. So then, so our son was born May 4th, 2024, Draven Wolfgang. And he's he is such a joy. He brings so much joy. Everywhere he goes, he brings joy. He is like a little clown. We'll go to the grocery store and he loves dogs. So people have their dogs there. So he like wants to pet their dog and hang out with their dog. And a lot of these older ladies, they're like enthused by it. They love it. So they let him pet their dog. And then they're just, you can see the joy just in them letting him pet their dog and just them seeing him. And a couple of people have even thanked us after like being an encounter with him. And we're like, okay, you're welcome. We didn't do anything. We're just here shopping and our son is just enthused by your dog and you just got to see him being happy around your dog. And there's been a few times at Walmart that people have just had such a reaction to him of joy. And it's like, wow, like what is this kid meant to do? What's going to go on? Like you're not even 2 years old yet and you're already like your presence is doing something around people. It's really amazing. That's most of the testimony, but like I do know that God has put on my heart a few years ago that I just have this really, really strong desire to help God build his army of the next generation. And I don't really know exactly what that looks like. And I wish I did. And I've gotten a little frustrated over the years because I felt like I would try things. I would help out at the youth and then it just didn't really fit. Or I'd help out in the kids ministry and instead of being like rewarding and fun, it was frustrating and upsetting. So I've tried a couple things and so far things haven't really fit, but I know that's something that I'm called to do. I really want to empower children. I want them to stand so strong on God's word and his foundation at a young age that when maybe they get to these adolescent years and this nonsense in the world comes at them, like it's not even going to shake them. They're going to be so strong already in God's principles that they're just going to be like, no, you can't put me there. I'm not going to feel depression. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to act that way or feel that way or whatever. Like I know that's something that I'm going to do. And I've kind of started, I've released a couple books. At this point, they're just ebooks because it's very expensive, unfortunately, to release a print book. But I've got a couple more book ideas. And I know when it's time, God is going to provide those funds and those books are going to be released and great things are going to come from it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So I do have a couple of things that I wanted to hit on. And I think that was a beautiful testimony. And the one thing that I noticed was the parts where you felt that void, where you felt that emptiness. It seemed like God answered no matter how long it took. And you know the saying, in God's timing is perfect. But in your story, there are moments where he seemed to have answered you. There was the point where you said you started dating at like 12 or 13 years old. You're trying to fill that void in your heart. You didn't understand at that point in time that void was Jesus.
Yeah.
You didn't understand that at the time. And then you weren't sure about your husband being the one. You came with a disclaimer. You gave him that disclaimer and he said, all right, bring it to me.
Yeah.
And it feels as though Jesus sent him to you to fill that void. And through all of these works in your life that you just described here, everything pulled you closer to him and let you know that was the way to fill the void, was through Jesus, through Christ. So I just wanted to hit on that real quick, that like I was trying to put the pieces together as you're going along. And every time you said something, I was like, wow, that goes with that. There's another point she's filling the void.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really beautiful when you can look back and, you know, and it's so important, I think, to continue sharing our testimonies because I think it definitely emboldens us. Like earlier today when I was writing my notes and I'm looking at all these things and same thing you're saying, I'm like, oh, well, God answered that here. God answered that here. God answered that here. So yeah, I'm dealing with these things right now and I'm believing for these certain things right now. Well, I know without a doubt, God's going to answer those things. And it is in his timing, which can be frustrating
Yes.
because we don't really like his timing. We want it our way.
Yeah.
And that's hard, but
It is.
it'll be okay.
Patience is a very difficult thing for us
Yes.
as humans. But we do know God's timing is perfect, and everything he does is for a reason.
It
And
is.
He's always watching out for us, making sure we get things when we need them
Yeah.
and not too soon. And I think the other part where I was trying to figure that out was when you said that it seemed like nobody was listening to your pleas, to your cries. Like your mom didn't, she didn't answer that. And
Yeah.
other people around you didn't answer that. My only thought with that one was, and it's not in any kind of defense, but, as parents, they probably look at it like, oh, that's just a phase. They'll grow out of it,
Yeah.
as they do with many kids, and
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of parents out there have done that or said that. It's just a phase. They'll get over it. But yeah, I'm sure that could have been frustrating. And that's another point where that void was there. You needed to fill that void. You needed to feel that love,
Yeah. I think the scary thing about it, and also like the first time I gave my testimony, one of the big factors that led to me doing that was there was a student at the Wallenpaupack High School that committed suicide. And anytime I hear of somebody of any age committing suicide, like it infuriates me. And that's like, I want to do something about that. And I don't really know how or what yet, but I know that that's something that maybe the reason I went through a lot of this, because it's not okay to feel that way. And especially if someone's feeling that way and they're crying out for help and they're not getting the help, what can be done to step in before it goes that far? Like, it's such a shame for life to be wasted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this, I'll add this onto what you just said. And I've said it in another episode before as well, but it's something that bears repeating too, is there are times when we go through so much and we might ask God, why me? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do to deserve this? I'm a good person. I go to church. I say my prayers. And then we don't stop to think that maybe God knows how strong we are and God is molding us. He's shaping us through the fire, making us stronger so that we can do what you said
100%.
and go out there and help someone else who's going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Because more than anyone else that they need that person. They need that person to reach out and say, hey, are you all right? How's everything going with you? So yeah, I definitely think that bears repeating. And honestly, I'd be okay with saying it during every episode.
I think that's 100% true. Even somebody going to any type of rehab or something, you're going to relate a lot easier to somebody else who has lived it than somebody who doesn't. So I think God allows all of us, well, maybe not all of us, but us to go through certain trials because what do they say? Your test then becomes your testimony. Your mess becomes your message. Like that's what it is. And when you're in it, it's not great. But then now I can look back and be like, well, yeah, that was hard and that wasn't great. But now I'm going to flip it around and now I'm going to do something about this. And hopefully I'm going to help somebody else in that place so they don't have to deal with it as long or maybe at all.
Yeah. And let's roll that into as well, sharing our testimonies, like you were saying before, because there's so much power in that. Mm-hmm. Sharing your testimony is something that is very difficult for a lot of people because it starts pulling out all of the darkest moments in your life.
Yep.
And there are people who push that stuff way down. They don't want to think about it, or they think that they're alone in what they went through, or they look at themselves like they're lesser.
Yeah.
Or they're not worthy. And how many of us have said that about, going back to church or going back to Christ saying, well, I'm not worthy. I did this.
Yeah.
Right. So when we share our testimonies, that's really trying to help someone else to come out of their darkness.
Yeah.
To tell their story, to give them the courage to do it as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I absolutely love that too. There is one other thing that I wanted to mention too, just because I really loved this part, is when you were describing the birth of your daughter and you were talking about that overwhelming love, this is the part I missed before when I was trying to talk about filling the void and everything. The way you described that, that's how Jesus feels about us.
Yeah.
And that was, and I'm going to use this term because I had someone else in here, Pastor Helen, that I really loved when she said this. That was his God wink to you, saying, there you go. This is what it feels like to be me.
Yeah.
This is that unconditional love. This is that love that you were yearning.
Yeah.
So I thought the way you described it was just so beautiful, and I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, you almost can't put it in words, but I think probably most mothers have felt it, and they'll know exactly what that is. Like, it's just, you've waited for this baby, the 9 months they've been growing, and you can't really interact with them, and then you see them, and it's just, it's amazing. Especially when you've been told you can have a baby, that even adds like a different level to it.
Oh man, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll round it out with this one final question. If there's a piece of advice that you would want someone to pull out of your story to help them out in a dark time, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing is just that they're not alone, and that no matter how dark it gets, there is light in the world somewhere. And just if they could just find somebody to reach out to and just let them know. Maybe that was part of what was going on with me. Like, I needed to actually tell someone. I don't know if I ever actually said, hey, I need help. I probably never really did that. I was just acting out. But maybe you just need to admit when you need help and when you're in a place. And God is always there. He's there through every single situation, and he's not going to fail. He never has failed, and he's never going to fail. So definitely asking for help and reaching out to anybody. Especially, obviously people of faith is going to be a little bit better because they've got a positive outlook and things like that, and they're going to lead you down a positive road.
As Leyna's story settles into your heart, we're reminded of Isaiah 43, verse 2. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Not after, not eventually, with you in it. Her testimony shows that when every voice around her seemed silent, God was already moving. She said it plainly. No matter how dark it gets, there is light in the world somewhere. God is always there. If you're walking through uncertainty or carrying wounds no one else sees, let this be a gentle nudge toward hope. God's presence isn't delayed, and his love isn't conditional, and his timing, though rarely comfortable, is always purposeful. Thank you so much for being with us today. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you share it with a friend. Remember to follow on Spotify and Apple, and be sure to leave a rating or review. It really means a lot to the heartbeat of the show. If you have your own story to tell, please reach out. BonesToLifePodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, let's keep these dry bones rattling.